UN General Assembly votes on this October 30th on the proposed resolution presented by Cuba against the blockade imposed by the United States, a policy that has caused losses estimated at $5 billion over the last year. The Iranian Foreign Minister said Abbas Araghchi remanded the UN Security Council to impose sanctions on Israel for the massacre of civilians in Gaza and Lebanon and its military interference in the area. In Brazil, will go before a jury. Rony Lessa and Ekion, the former military police officers accused of the murders of councilwoman Marilu Franco and her driver Anderson Gomez more than 6 years after the crime. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In the UN, the vote on a draft resolution against the U.S. blockade on Cuba, as well as a request to exclude the Caribbean nation from the list of countries that allegedly sponsor terrorism. The World Forum of 193 countries will examine and vote on the document presented by the Caribbean nation, which supports the reasons why that U.S. policy, applied for more than 6 decades, should be suspended. The U.S. blockade on Cuba has been widely condemned by the majority of the world. Yet in recent years, instead of lifting it, successive U.S. administrations have made it worse with the rejection of the international community. United States presidential candidate Donald Trump visited Allentown, Pennsylvania this October 29th after escalation in controversies over Puerto Rico remarks made days before. Former President Donald Trump returned to a majority Hispanic city in eastern Pennsylvania after a comedian at Trump's Madison Square Garden rally sparked controversy by making racist jokes about Latinos, including calling Puerto Rico a floating rubbish island. Trump's most recent rally took place in Allentown, a city where the Hispanic population makes up 55% of total. The visit was an opportunity for the former president to appeal to Hispanics after different groups called racist jokes made at the New York rally disrespectful. In this context, dozens of Latin American people protested in the streets of Allentown, Pennsylvania in rejection of the racist comment made by Tony Hinchcliffe, a comedian hired by Donald Trump, calling Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Pennsylvania is one of the key states to determine the triumph of one of the two opponents in the U.S. elections due to the strong presence of Hispanic residents, 450,000 of whom are from Puerto Rico. In the face of the controversy, dozens of Puerto Rican artists spoke out on social media, rejecting the comments made by Hinchcliffe and expressing their support for the election of Kamala Harris as President of the United States.
I'm a Puerto Rican. How you say that my country is trash? It's just like saying America. He talks all about crazy stuff about America. He doesn't talk great about America. He wants to make America great. You don't hear him say how wonderful this country is and how much the immigrants make this country a better place.
In the United States as well, Democratic Party candidate Kamala Harris delivered her closing statement before the presidential election, urging the country to move beyond violent division to a future of shared responsibility. From the vicinity of Washington Park, the candidate said that for too long the American people has been consumed with too much division, chaos and mutual distrust, adding that they must go beyond that for a peaceful future. Harris also emphasized that if she wins the elections, unlike former President Donald Trump, she plans to give people who disagree with her a place at the table. In addition, Kamala Harris stated that Trump has spent a decade trying to keep Americans divided and fearful, which is why he should not be president of the country again. And Uruguay's electoral boards will carry out the final scrutiny of the general elections on October 30th, a process that could take several days. The process includes the review of the votes, as well as the analysis and resolution of the appeals presented on the occasion of the primary scrutiny. The Minister of the Supreme Court, Jose García-Torena, explained that these appeals are resolved by the electoral board of the department or eventually by the electoral court. if the appeal is also presented in subsidy and the board does not accept it. There will also be a recount of the election sheets only if there are any inconsistencies in the minutes. And in Georgia, the Central Electoral Commission has formally requested an investigation due to allegations of electoral fraud following the parliamentary elections held last October 26. This request arises amidst escalating political tensions, particularly involving President Salome Zurabishvili and various political parties that have raised concerns regarding potential irregularities in the electoral process. However, the Commission maintains that the allegations are unfounded. In a statement, it was expressed that frustration over the intense criticism and accusations since the election results were announced. The Commission further asserted that the claims seem aimed at undermining its credibility. Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Iran, Foreign Minister Said Abbas Araghchi demanded the UN Security Council to impose sanctions on Israel for the massacre of civilians in Gaza and Lebanon and its military interference in the area. During a meeting with ambassadors of foreign countries in Tehran, the Iranian diplomat warned that the Tel Aviv regime is threatening the peace and security of Middle Eastern nations with its war actions against the people. He also emphasized that the UN Security Council must act against the insistence of the Zionist regime to continue the war and prevent more innocent bloodshed in Gaza and Lebanon. In this regard, he called on the international community to take immediate and collective action against the flagrant violations of international law committed by Israel. The Iranian ambassador to the United Nations, Amir Said Iravani, condemned the crimes and blockades committed by Israel against thousands of Palestinians in Gaza.
The regime continues to use starvation as a weapon. For over 2 weeks, all humanitarian aid to Gaza has been halted. The blockade has suspended efforts to deliver essential vaccination and other life-saving services indefinitely. These actions are more than a denial of aid. They are a direct attack on the dignity and rights of Palestinians, an attempt to undermine their fundamental right to life. Gaza must remain whole, and its people must not be forced into displacement or subjected to this calculated operation.
The representative of Iran affirmed that attacking the United Nations Agency for Palestine Refugees aggravates the crisis and represents a violation of the human rights of people in Gaza.
We condemn the recent Israeli legislation to target UNRWA seek to block it from delivering critical support. This act of collective punishment, as recognized by the UN Secretary General, directly contravenes the UN Charter and Israeli legal obligation.
Some regions in the south and east of Spain suffer severe flooding this October 29th as 150 to 300 millimeters of rain fell in some areas in just a few hours. Several regions of the country were affected by severe flooding, resulting in fatalities. Heavy rainfall was recorded in the south and east of the country, and the worst affected provinces include Valencia, Murcia, and Malaga. In Valencia, the death toll so far rises to at least 64, and around 6 people are reported missing. Likewise, many were trapped in different localities. As a result of the floods, traffic was also cut off, roads were closed in Valencia, and high-speed trains were interrupted. And a United Nations report says governments around the world must step up their nationally determined contributions to limit the impact of global warming while highlighting the role of solar and wind energy. The world is on track to warm by up to 3.1 Celsius degrees this century without stronger climate commitment from leaders around the world, according to a new United Nations report. That is more than double the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit set by the Paris Agreement, which aims to keep the world on a climate-safe timeline. According to the United Nations Environment Programme's latest emissions gap report, current 2030 pledges of the countries are not being met. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Brazil, more than 6 years after the murder of councilwoman Marielle Franco and her driver Anderson Gomez on March 14, 2018, the former military police officers accused of the crime, Ronnie Lessa and Elcio Quiros, will go before a jury on October 30th. The crime attracted international attention and was considered an attack on democracy. The Public Prosecutor's Office of Rio de Janeiro will ask the maximum sentence of 84 years in prison. In the midst of this, the Marielle Franco Institute, founded by the family, will hold a rally the day of the defendant's trial to bring together people demanding a strong response to the case. And the Argentine government announced this October 29th that fuel prices will rise by at least 4% from November the 1st. It was also reported that the value is defined taking into account the rate of the crawling peg applied by the central bank and the tax component to match the movement of the official dollar, which rises monthly by 2%. Moreover, it is estimated that petrol and diesel prices will be adjusted by an average of 4%, although there may be some items with slightly higher increases. This increase is related to the movement of the exchange rate and the rise in the international price of oil. Also in Argentina, this October 29th, around 300 rescuers were working to find at least 7 people trapped in the rubble of the Dubrovnik Apart Hotel in the city of Villa Gesell, which collapsed in the early hours of the morning, leaving 1 person dead and 1 injured. The security minister of the province of Buenos Aires, Javier Alonso, said the structure imploded, falling in on itself. The last 3 floors of the 10-story tower collapsed onto the adjoining building. The body of a man in his 80s and his wife, a 79-year-old woman, was injured and taken to a hospital where recovered from the rubble of the adjoining building. In Peru, in the context of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit and in the face of a 72-hour strike, President Dina Boluarte asked Congress to authorize the entry of foreign military troops. The administration said that this would help to preserve security through the summit. The Boluarte government emphasized that planes, helicopters, weapons, refueling trucks, as well as various support equipment for planes and helicopters would be brought in. In addition, the project allows for the arrival in the country of 600 military personnel from the United States Army, Air Force, and Marines who will be deployed to Lima, Pisco, and Chiclayo. Also in Peru, with 98% progress achieved as of October 29th, the Peruvian-Chinese mega port of Shanghai in the north of the Lima region is almost ready to start operations in November as the most important in South America. Because of its location, Shanghai will reduce the arrival time of cargo to China and Asia, in general from 35 days for the sea voyages to the north of the continent to only 25 by direct route to its destination, which will reduce the cost of Peruvian exports and that of products imported from China. The port of Shanghai is a key component of China's Belt and Road, and in its first year will receive 1 million high-capacity containers.
We are going to have direct routes to Asia, particularly to the ports in China, which are going to reduce 10, 15, 20 days, depending on the route. The other thing is that our objective is to become the Singapore of Latin America, so that the port cargo passes through here when it goes to Asia. When someone from Brazil, Venezuela, Bolivia, Paraguay, Argentina wants to go to Asia, think of Peru as an exit point. That is what we're aiming at. This is an investment that has a first stage, which is this one that will be inaugurated on November 14. President Xi Jinping and President Boluarte are going to inaugurate it.
In Puerto Rico, given the failure of the privatization of electricity service, the Union of Electrical and Irrigation Industry Workers proposed on October 29 the restructuring of the public corporation. The organization's president, Gualberto Rolón, said that in view of the failure of the United States companies, Luma Energy and Genera PR, the time has come to reorganize the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority, moving towards a system that abandons the use of fossil fuels while ensuring an accessible service for all. The unionists pointed out that the privatization of the electricity system has led to an extremely costly operation, which has resulted in a much higher bill and a deficient and failed service quality or modernization of the system. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.